you travel Los Padres long enough, then no doubt you are familiar with this sound. This is the sound of a rattlesnake, and if you frequent the Los Padres, it's just a matter of time until you round a corner or come across either a Southern Pacific or Northern Pacific rattlesnake who call the Los Padres home. As scary and alarming as this rattle may be, we should be thankful for the courtesy most rattlers provide by letting us know where they are and that they prefer to be left alone. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Conant. I'm the director of the Los Padres Forest Association. I've come across and been freaked out by dozens of rattlers during my trips across the Los Padres. I've seen them under bushes, between rocks, sunbathing on the sides of creeks, even swimming in the creeks. And I've seen them on the tops of mountains, sides of cliffs, in the creeks, potreros, campgrounds, even next to toilets. You name it, rattlers can and should be expected just about anywhere in the Los Padres. This is in particular between the months of March and October, but even then, I've seen rattlers, I think, every month of the year. They're certainly out there, but rattlesnakes want to be left alone, and for the most part, they will take advantage of every opportunity to get out of our way and leave us alone. But there are times we can't get out of each other's way, and rattlesnake encounters can be very intense and very scary. While certainly scary, rattlesnake encounters are usually just that, encounters. And thankfully, very rarely do they result in strikes or bites. The following interview is a tale we wanted to share about a friend of the LPFA who suffered a horrific rattlesnake bite while exploring the deep Sespe backcountry. Hopefully none of us ever have to suffer a rattlesnake bite, but sharing the story might just help everyone be a little more prepared for how to avoid rattlesnakes and what to do in case of a rattlesnake bite. All right, we're here, not live, but we're here with Dan Sussman, who is a teacher at Midland. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, teacher and the Dean of Experiential Learning at the Midland School.
Cool. And how long have you been with Midland School?
This is my 5th year teaching natural history and basically all the different sciences here, and also getting kids outdoors in the backcountry, climbing and backpacking and doing all that stuff.
Absolutely. And we're talking to you, Dan, today. We're going to eventually get to your story of your recent rattlesnake encounter, but I want to kind of get a little bit more on your background before we get into that. And so as far as Midland goes, you butt up against the forest, as you said. Rattlesnakes, are they a common, do you guys see them often there, or is this something you prepare your students for rattlesnake sightings?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds, especially typically young men whose brains aren't fully developed, the first thing, we tell them is don't pick up the snake, whatever kind of snake it is, right? And rattlesnakes are super common here at Midland and, just everywhere around. But because it's a ranch, you have trails, you have roads, you have plenty of places in buildings where the snakes want to hide and hang out. So if not daily, definitely weekly, especially when you have 100 people here, somebody sees a snake almost every day. And it's just a matter of where's the snake in terms of how we react to that. Obviously we try to coexist, and when they're right at our doorstep or, endangering humans or dogs, then that's when, we might relocate them or do whatever needs to be done.
Right. Okay. And where are you from originally? Are you from this area, from Los Olivos, Central Coast, or?
No, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Nebraska originally. Spent a lot of time on the East Coast, New Hampshire, and all that stuff. Maine, kind of where I fell in love with hiking and trail work and doing all that. And then worked for a long time out in Colorado as a instructor for the Colorado Outward Bound School, and came out to the Central Coast about, I guess, a little over 5 years ago now, and have been at Midland ever since. And, it's hard not to fall in love with, the lack of snow and 365 days a year where you can pretty much go outside and do something in the Los Padres or somewhere around here. So.
Cool. Yeah. And I know you and I have communicated. We talked about this before the recording went on, but we've been email buddies now for a while, kind of exchanging stories about different backpacking trips and things. And over these 5 years, from what I gather, you've been out in the forest a bunch, backpacking, exploring, trying to learn as much there in your backyard as possible. So it seems like you've hiked a bunch of places, right?
Yeah, I've been super lucky. to have a lot of mentors and a lot of folks who've, you know, guided me and kind of said, hey, have you checked out this place, or have you gone there? And you know, who've taught me ways of like, how do you care for this place? You know, how do you, when you see a trail that needs to be worked on, just, you know, go do it, you know, or go talk to the people who can help support it. And so, yeah, I've been lucky, especially around Naira and sort of our local area. I've spent a lot of time. I'm a avid runner as well, so run like ultras. So I, you know, a lot of the training I do is just back there. So I'm lucky for that too.
Cool. And so our story that we're going to talk about today, when did that start? When was this? Was it a month ago? We're recording today.
Yeah.
June 8th.
Yeah, it's about a little less than a month. It was May 14th, 2022. Yeah, May 14th when I got bit. Yeah.
Okay. So how many people were with you, and you're headed out in a trailhead in the Sespe? And was it were you going for an evening? Was it a day hike, or was it a backpacking trip?
Yeah, it was a quick, you know, we had spent one night, and then you know, Friday night, spent the night out. It was great. Next day went out, you know, had a good time. My friends were going to stay at this other site there, and I was going to walk back because I had to work the next day. I had to work on Sunday. So yeah, it was about 4 o'clock or so where my friend, who just so happened, he was like, hey, like I'll accompany you out, because we were kind of off trail, and you know, neither one of us was super confident that we were like knew exactly the way to the main trail. So in any case, he was like, yeah, I'll walk with you. And you know, about, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes into our walk, you know, we were walking through maybe a little bit less than knee-high grass on sort of a social trail, and yeah, just got bit. You know, no warning, no rattle, no nothing. My friend and his dog had walked right by the same spot, and I just got bit. And then afterwards, it rattled at me after, you know, so it kind of reared up, rattled, and then just kind of went away. But that's kind of how the bite happened.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of my friends always says that it's the third person who gets bit. The first person wakes the snake up, the second person pisses him off, and the third is the one that gets bit. I don't think that that's a universal rule, but that might have applied there. You know, it sounds like the dog was probably first, and then your buddy, and then you. Yeah, it's awful. That's awful. So, how did you see the snake? I mean, you know right away that it, I guess if it rattled, you knew right away it was a rattlesnake. But what was your first thought there when you, just pain, or what was going on?
Yeah, it's kind of just like, oh shit, you know, I just got bit by a rattlesnake, right? Like, so I just kind of went over to my buddy. I was like, hey man, a rattlesnake just bit me. And there's some pain initially, but it's not too bad, like just the bite itself. And you know, we kind of immediately went into planning, like, okay, what do we do? We didn't have service. I typically have a spot device or something, satellite communication, and we didn't have it this time. So and so we made a plan. My friend was going to go walk back, grab his stuff from the campsite, and then we were going to walk out together. At this point, we're about 7 miles out from the trailhead, and it took him about an hour to kind of go back to the campsite and come back to me. In which time, like, I just, you know, a lot of so the first thing that happened was there was some numbness and tingling throughout my face, lips, tongue, and that was accompanied by, you know, a little bit of trouble breathing. I don't think, you know, in my mind I was like, oh shoot, I wonder anaphylaxis or something. So you know, had a couple Benadryls and stuff. And so in any case, I had kind of deteriorated in that hour. And you know, so he got back, and, you know, at which point I like just tried to stand up, and I literally couldn't stand. It was like I just would just fall over, stand up, fall over, stand up, fall over. So it became pretty clear that I wasn't going to walk out in any way. So
wow.
Yeah.
So going back, I want to get back to that real quick, but going back to the actual bite, what were you wearing at the time? Were you wearing shorts and where on your body was the bite?
Yeah, it was yeah, good question. I was wearing sneakers with some gaiters, some like basically like ultra running or running shoes.
Those the small gators that are kind of designed just to keep the rocks out of your socks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I had pants on in addition to that, and but the snake just bit right through, right through the pants, and it was in my like upper kind of shin on my right leg.
Okay.
So yeah, probably about 3 or 4 inches above my foot. So got me kind of relatively high up there.
And were these kind of lightweight pants or were they like kind of Carhartt style or what kind of just normal jeans?
They were kind of your like lightweight sort of hiking style pant, you
Right.
know?
Okay. Like a Columbia.
Might have been some like climbing pants. I can't remember, some Black Diamond pants or something.
Okay.
They cut them off me, so I don't even have them anymore.
But whatever it was, it didn't stop the snake.
No, maybe Carhartt might have. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Would have been pretty hot on that day though. It was about almost 100 degrees.
Yeah. And how big was the snake? If you saw it, was it, most rattlesnakes get up to 5 feet or so. Is it a fully grown snake or a little bit smaller?
Yeah, it's fully grown. Not 5 feet, probably 4 feet. It was a
black
good sized snake.
Is it a black
was
one?
greener. Yep,
Okay.
greener. Yeah, definitely a Southern Pacific.
Right.
Obviously, it's the only snake we really have around here that is a rattlesnake, at least. So yeah, but yeah.
There's some talk, I've dealt with a lot of rattlesnakes and near bites, knock on wood, over the years. And they say there's a percentage of bites that are dry bites and don't get venom. Did you guys think about that at all? Or were you saying like, I'm going to give it 10 minutes and see if there's any kind of reaction, or did you know right off the bat that it was a wet bite?
Yeah. We had our first aid kit and I looked in it and I was like, so let's open the book or whatever, the little thing, and it said, 25 to 40% are dry bites. And who knows if that's accurate for Southern Pacifics or
so you're just
whatever.
At that point, you're just hoping.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
just praying.
Just like, I hope I got a dry bite. But within 5 minutes, my lips are tingling and I'm, having trouble breathing. So I was like, I didn't get a dry bite. Definitely didn't. It was pretty clear,
Did you do anything to the wound site right away, like pour water on it, or and I know the old school thing is you cut a little slit there between the fang marks and have your buddy try to extract the venom. That's a no-no these days. But did you put any water on it, or were you near the creek, or were you kind of up on that hillside there?
Yeah, we had already kind of passed. We were above the creek, no water around, but we had some water. So I flushed it, and then just wrapped it just to like stop the bleeding, and but no. Yeah, there's not much to do with a rattlesnake bite in the sense of, none of the things that people say, home remedies, as you mentioned, like it's not going to do much. You need anti-venom, right? So that's, yeah. So, for good or better or worse, and I think potentially, I just stayed there, basically just stayed put, laid down, and just was on my sleeping pad. And that's kind of, in a lot of ways, I think it probably was good, because that I didn't move the venom around. Not that I could have walked anyways, but I think, you hear of people who walk a mile out or whatever after getting bit, and I don't know, maybe they just stronger than I am, or they got less venom or whatever. But there was no walking. But it might have been a blessing in disguise, given how long it ended up taking for me to get out of there.
Right. Yeah, and I've also read and heard that all venom's a little bit different. I don't know if that depends on who the person is, but all the venom is slightly different, and it affects people in different ways as well. And I've read too that the Chumash, when they were bit by a rattlesnake way back in the day, they just go try to find a shaded area next to a creek and just sort of wait it out and stay mellow. Try to keep your blood rate low and just kind of deal with it. So it sounds like you were doing that. Hey, you send your buddy and the dog back to the camp, get their stuff. They come back to you. It's pretty clear at that point you can't walk. It's probably 6 o'clock at this point in time.
Yeah,
getting there. And so, what was your next move? Obviously you're not moving, so you send your. It was just one buddy, or were there a couple guys?
I had 2 friends, but the other guy, he's in his 70s or late 60s, and he was at the camp, just kind of, he wasn't going to be of use in the situation. So he stayed there. And so, yeah, at that point, once it became clear I couldn't walk, essentially, my friend was like, what should we do? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. I'm the one who got bit. But no, we made a plan. I had my phone, and, with CalTopo, just dropped a pin, in my location, just so it was super clear for first responders, like where I was. Because it wasn't, a very obvious location. So gave him that phone, and, there wasn't anything he could do. He saw how bad a shape I was in. I'd started vomiting, and just, foot started swelling. It became, the trouble breathing. Unfortunately, by the time he had come back, I looked a lot worse. Hadn't quite totally stabilized. So it was scary. I think scary for him as much as it was for me. I was like, dude, you gotta go. You gotta hike
fast.
And he did. I mean, it took us most of a day. We hiked 3 hours the evening before, and then 5 or 6 hours that next day to get where we were. It took him 3 hours to get out.
Nice.
So he walked fast. So yeah, that was the plan. He would go out and try to get help.
Okay, so he's bombing out, headlamp, intel, ready to whatever it takes to get out. How about the other guy? He's still sitting there at the camp, or did he come join you, or?
No, he was he was so fried from the day. We had a pretty long day, and he's an older guy and did a lot of bushwhacking, and was just, it wasn't going to be helpful to send him for me,
Right.
It wasn't anything anybody could do. Right. So yeah, it was just me I was just there.
So you send buddy number one out to the car or whatever. Hopefully he had the keys. Was he able to get cell reception before the car, or did he have to get to the car and then start driving out?
Yeah, he had to drive out. He had to drive about 30 minutes out before he got service. And actually within 10 minutes of him calling, they had a helicopter out already looking for somebody. I don't know exactly where, somewhere in the forest. And so they actually sent that. They kind of tracked his location based on that, or he might have said where he was. I'm not sure. But they landed within 10 minutes of him making that call. Of course, it's been at that point 5 or 6 hours since I got bit. And unfortunately, the helicopter had to go get refueled before it came to me. But,
So it found him first. So it flew down, landed, found him.
Yep.
And then did he get on board the helicopter, or he just kind of told him the story and gave him your GPS?
Yeah. Well, he forgot actually initially to give the GPS coordinates. He's like freaked out, right? He's trying to show him on a map where I was and all this. And then they leave. The helicopter leaves, and he realizes he had my phone and with the GPS coordinates, and he's like, "Oh shit!" But it was fine, right? He calls 911 again and gives them those coordinates. And meanwhile, I'm just there, and in my head, after about 3 hours, things stabilized. The symptoms didn't get better, but they weren't getting worse. So I was like, okay, I'm having trouble breathing, but I'm still breathing, and it's been a long time, so I'm probably not going to stop breathing. My leg's getting bigger, but it's not black. And I read in the first aid book too. It was like, severe envenom, if you get a lot of venom, like, or what is severe envenomation? I can't say that word, is hard. That you might start bleeding out of your eyes or your gums. Yeah. And so, and they're like, that usually takes about 6 to 12 hours. And, I was hitting that 6 hour mark, and I'm just like touching my gums every so often. Like, am I bleeding out my gums yet? So, and I think after, 3-4 hours, I kind of was able to reach a state of like sort of calm, and just like, there's not anything I can do. There was kind of an acceptance of like, well, I'm probably not going to die. My people don't really die. You just don't know. Like, if you're not familiar, you're like, who knows what'll happen? I might, maybe if it takes them 24 hours, maybe I lose my foot, who knows? But, at a certain point, just kind of was accepting that these are this is the range of possibility, and that there's not much I can do about it. And for some reason that felt okay. It's like, oh, there's actually nothing I can do except sit here, keep breathing, try to sip water.
Were you trying to stay awake, or did the book say anything about sleeping, or that just never crossed your mind about sleeping? Because now it's like, what time? Like, we're talking about, it's well dark now, right? The moon is up. It is dark.
Yeah, I remember watching the moon rise. I was facing mostly south, like pretty much south, and so I could see the moon just kind of crest over the hill, and kind of track time with it a little bit. So I could kind of see. Sometimes it felt like the moon wasn't moving at all. I was like, oh man, it's gonna be a long night. But yeah, at that point, it's been, that's 9, 10, 11 o'clock. The time kept going. And but in my head, I also was like, there's no way anybody's going to come in the middle of the night. Like, we were really lucky in that there had been some pretty severe winds that week before. It was just super windy, and I don't think they would have flown a helicopter in those conditions. So it was a perfectly calm night. So yeah, when it was about by around midnight, I heard the helicopter, and at first I was like, oh, there's no way,
I'm hallucinating.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So, I heard it, and then I see the spotlight, and I'm like, oh no, they're looking for me. Yep. And they flew right to me almost. It was amazing with that GPS coordinate. They were just right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And were they
and stuff, but
what's your pain level at this point in time? Is it like you said it kind of leveled off a little bit, but
it wasn't that pain, to be honest. The pain wasn't the problem. I also took a lot of Benadryl. I took a lot of a handful of ibuprofen and Tylenol. I just kind of loaded up on things because I was like, this could be really bad. And so I just wanted to, not like overdosing, but appropriate levels of medication, and the Benadryl for potential for some sort of anaphylaxis or whatever. So actually the pain level wasn't that bad, really. It was more just scary because you don't know what's going to happen next.
No, that's really scary. So you see the helicopter come flying in. Is this a special helicopter? Obviously, if flying at nighttime, that's.
Yeah, I thought it was like the military or something, and it turned out it was the Ventura County Fire Department. I think recently had gotten what they call Firehawks, which I think is some version of like a retrofitted like Black Hawk helicopter or something like that. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, it was like what I imagine as like a military helicopter. There was like 5 or 6 people on the crew, and it was quite a operation to, they came in, they dropped 2 separate people down to me. The first one kind of just walked over and made sure I'm like stable and, and all that. And, the first thing I asked her, I was like, are my gums bleeding? That's what I asked her. And she's like, no. So that was good. But yeah, then they sent a second, and they basically just rigged me up so that I could, basically it's like a hammock harness, more or less. And they put you in the harness and drop down from the helicopter a cable with a massive, auto locking carabiner, and just kind of attach you to that and say, don't hit your head on the way up. Pretty much. Yeah.
So they weren't able to land there. Or is that just, I guess that might be standard operating for that type of helicopter?
If there was a landing zone, I'm sure they would have, but it was just so it's just brushy as heck, and a really kind of narrow draw there. Like there was nowhere to land.
So what is friend A doing now? So he's driven out, called 911, made contact with the helicopter, called at 911 again, said, hey, I forgot the GPS coordinates. Now, is he headed back in, or is he saying, I'm out of here, I'm going home?
Well, at this point, he's hiked, 15 some odd miles that day. And he was at the trailhead. He just slept in my car we had driven together. So I think he slept in the car as much as he could. He was so tired. I think him and his dog they passed out. And yeah, and friend B has been asleep the whole time, I think.
Yeah. Did either of them, friend A or friend B, did they hear or see the helicopter coming back and forth or anything? Or
yeah, my friend at the campsite said he didn't, but he said, he's pretty close to a creek where he was. So, and he said there was something else going on. So, but the next day, my friend who had gone out, hiked out, said he ran into somebody who was down the way a bit on the main trail, and that person had heard the helicopter. Yeah.
Right. I got airlifted out once as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Same sort of thing. They put a basket down, and I still remember the face of the it was fire as well. The fireman that I greeted in the helicopter. It was I'll never forget that. I never got his name or anything like that, but I remember it was pretty traumatic. What did they say to you, or what did you say to them when we first saw them come running up after they came out of the helicopter?
I was just like, "Are you in the?" Well, I mean, I first asked about my gums, but then
meanwhile, you're doing this, and you're feeling this. You're saying,
is it blood? Yeah.
Yeah.
They ask you just basic questions, around like what happened, and making sure you're alert and oriented and all that stuff. And I would just kind of was like, "Are you in the military? What's your deal?" And they're just, they're part of Ventura Search and Rescue or fire department. I mean, it's amazing the work that those people do. I mean, putting their lives at risk they've been out earlier in the night, they're out, who knows how often, but very professional, they can't do much for you with a snake bite back there, right? They're just gonna
get you out as quick as they can.
Yeah. And once I got in that helicopter, man, we were in Fillmore in 10 minutes, that's what it felt like. Maybe it was 15. I don't know. It was pretty quick. I mean, if you can fly, it's pretty close.
It's pretty close.
From the Sespe zone. So.
Absolutely. So they basket you up or harness you up, take the other two people up, and then you're off to Fillmore.
Yeah.
And then they take you straight to the hospital there in Fillmore, or they take you to an ambulance that then takes you.
Yeah, I think because I was stable, I don't know. They didn't take me to a helipad or whatever. They ended up taking me to a hospital. But some park in Fillmore landed, and then get you in the ambulance. And I was up in the Santa Paula hospital, which, they basically just call ahead to figure out who has antivenom that's close. Mm-hmm. And and it's wild, there's, I don't know, I've heard maybe, depending on the source, 600-ish snake bites a year in California from rattlers. So there's, when you think about that, around 37 million people, in all the hospitals we have and all the doctors, they don't see snake bites too often.
Right.
So none of these nurses, they never mix the antivenom. It's quite a process. So it was interesting throughout my time in hospitals. People don't, it's no fault of their own, but doctors don't actually know that much about it. Right. Of course, there's experts and so on, but the average emergency room doc or whatever, they're not going to necessarily know what to do.
There was a reality show. This might have been 15 years ago or so. It was based in San Diego, and they had a specialist doctor in eastern San Diego County, and they would move him around based on where the snake bites were. Mm. And I remember seeing some things where people got tons and tons of the antivenom, and others didn't.
Yeah.
So you're there at Santa Paula. I guess at this point in time, you're probably calling family and letting them know, or somebody's contacting somebody.
I didn't have my phone,
Oh yeah.
So because I'd given it to my
friend A.
Friend A. And the phone actually died right after he gave that information, and it never turned back on.
To this day.
Literally, no. It died. It's I did my job. I'm done. So it's kind of a bummer, because I had some photos and things of just kind of the process of, that first hour or so of what happened. So in any case, that doesn't matter. It did its job. But so I the only phone number I knew was my mom's in my head. So of course she's different time zone. It's 1 a.m. So I call her, and it's 3 a.m. her time. And she's like, oh, that couldn't, some spam call in the middle of the night. And then she sees like Ventura. She's like, oh God, this is, so I talked to her and, but they basically, they immediately started mixing up antivenom. They test your blood because that's the biggest thing they're worried about is your clotting factors and everything, your platelets and all the associated stuff with that. So, so they gave me 6 vials to start with the antivenom, put me in the ICU for a couple days. They kind of keep monitoring you after that, to make sure that your blood still looks good, that your swelling isn't progressing. Unfortunately, my swelling was progressing, so they had to give me 6 more vials of antivenom while I was at the hospital. I spent about 4 days in the hospital the first time while I was, about 4 days.
There at Santa Paula, you're there for 4 days.
Yeah.
You say the first time, so you're going back to the hospital later on?
Oh, unfortunately, unfortunately, a week later, they follow up. They coordinate with poison control and kind of make a plan. Poison control is the ones who really know what to do in these situations. And part of the follow up after you get antivenom is, 2 or 3 days after you get your last dose, they want to check your blood. And then about a week later, they want to check your blood again, because it turns out snake venom sticks, its half-life or whatever, it's not fully out of your system for about 2 weeks. So it can continue to mess with you if it hasn't all been neutralized for up to 2 weeks or sometimes more, but usually about that amount of time. So in any case, I had gone in for this sort of follow-up blood test a little bit more than a week later. And they were like, my primary care doc saw the results later that day and calls me and was like, you got to go to the emergency room right now because my platelet count had dropped so low. I still had venom kind of circulating. It was such that it was so low that they were concerned I was going to like spontaneously start bleeding in my brain. It was that low. So I was really lucky that my doctor caught it, of course, and that, just that it kind of all happened really quickly. And
start checking your gums again.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was like, they're like, are you bleeding anywhere? Did you hit your head on the way here to the hospital? Anything? They're like, they scanned my brain. They did all sorts of stuff because they were really worried. Again, the only solution they want to give you in that case, they want to transfuse you with platelets and do all this other stuff. But it's like, I said to the ER doc, I said, you need to give me antivenom because that's what you need in the case that's what's going to fix it. Right. It's going to, actually deal with the problem there. And they ended up giving me platelets too, because they were like, yeah, we need to give you antivenom and we don't want you to start spontaneously bleeding. So yeah, it's an ordeal. So I ended up going down to cottage in Santa Barbara after that for another couple nights as they monitored. And so I only ended up with about 18 vials of antivenom.
Only 18 vials. That seems like a lot.
It does, and it's more than some might get, but they really want you to get to the hospital within 6 hours. It took about 8 for me, which was fast given where I was. Okay. But ideally, the faster you get there, the better, right? In terms of does less damage to your tissues and so on. So, but I said only 18 because I had a student, he got bit when he was 11, and they ran a news story on the local Santa Barbara TV or whatever, and he was like the $1 million snake bite because he got 66 vials of antivenom.
Ooh. Was that up at was that Flores?
I think it was actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I read that story.
11 years old. Yeah. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I read that story.
Yeah. It's funny. He left me a message when I was in the hospital. He's like, welcome to the Santa Barbara County Snake Bite Club. Your membership dues are due to me in a week. It's $1,000. You can make it check payable. It's like, oh yeah, thanks, buddy. So
yeah, I met someone recently who was bit by a great white
Oh, wow.
off of a surf beach. And
Wow.
he was joking about that too. The
Yeah.
club
Well,
of
that's
people who,
way more rare.
yeah, that's
Way more
definitely more
rare.
rare. But yeah, you're certainly part of a club.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at probably just a few weeks ago at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
That you're down at Cottage and
Yep. 3.5 weeks now from the bite is what we're at. And I was for a long time. I mean, a couple weeks was I had a walker, couldn't walk. I went from like not being able to walk for a few days to a walker where I could, maybe get to the bathroom if I was lucky because the pain was so much when I put my foot vertical or sort of leg to in walking position. Then I kind of moved to crutches and but now I'm like I can kind of hobble around. So 3.5 weeks later, which I'm stoked. I'm like happy that it's progressing. And I think now we're kind of at the point where it's going to go a little bit, maybe more slowly, in terms of recovery. But I think they think that I'll fully recover and all that stuff. But one little snake bite, man, it can do a lot.
yeah, it makes you think about the shoe mash and kind of what they had to deal with at that time. And I mentioned this earlier. Your plan was to go sit by the creek or in the shade and just let it take its course. But here you got evacuated, had 16 vials, 16 or 18, 16?
18, 6 and 6. Yeah.
Okay, 18. And then now you're still dealing with it 3.5 weeks later. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. And I wonder what plant medicines, I'm sure that you mash had some that they
Sure.
addressed it with and whether we know what those are now or not. But yeah, it's serious. I'm sure people die. What's interesting about the Southern Pacific too is that most rattlesnakes just have hemotoxins, blood toxins, and maybe also some cytotoxins, tissue toxins. But depending on the population of the Southern Pacific, they have neurotoxins as well. And so it's unclear, it seems to be indicated by the symptoms I was having that this snake had some neurotoxins in the venom based on the tingling and all that stuff. But you never know what you're going to get. Like you were saying earlier, each snake's different, got a different blend and all sorts of things to mess you up. That's for sure.
Yeah. How's the actual bite location right now? Is it still pretty swollen? You have 2 fang marks for the rest of your life?
Yeah, people keep joking I need to do the fang tattoo or something there. No, that the actual bite location, it's pretty rare for stuff to get infected and all that. They've healed up real nice, but my foot pretty much every day now, it's my foot and sort of below my knee, everything just kind of swells up. Nothing as bad as it was. I mean, in the hospital, the snake bite thigh was twice the size of the other thigh.
Wow.
And now it's like, yeah, my ankle's, pretty big, but I can walk. And at the end of the day, if I go to sleep and elevate it, it'll be normal size in the morning. And then at the end of the day, just gets big again. So yeah.
Sounds like you got a good one. You got a good one. That's scary.
Yeah, man. And it didn't rattle. That's what kind of gets me is that, all the snakes that you just missed that rattled at you.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens pretty frequently, I think, for me at least. And you jump out of the way, whatever, it lets you know. But I just now I can't stop thinking about all those snakes that didn't rattle at me. Not to like make people scared, but it just, You wonder how many of those that you just missed and you didn't even know. Which kind of leads me to just think, obviously the solution isn't like, oh, we're not going to go in the backcountry, but being sure, especially if you're alone, to have that whatever communication technology you need to make sure that you can get help if you need to. Because I think if I was alone, if my friend hadn't just decided on a whim to walk with me that mile or whatever, could have turned out a lot worse. I mean, probably would be here, but a lot more damage for sure to the leg.
Yeah, you probably would have had to walk back to them.
Eventually
crawled somehow to them. Maybe the adrenaline would make you get there, but that in that mile, how much more damage would have done with you circulating the venom.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. I do a lot of solo backpacking and I certainly bring a communication device, but yeah, It's kind of a lifesaver. Could be
Yeah.
definitely a lifesaver. And then here's another question I had, and this is always you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but financially, there's always a question that comes up is how much did that helicopter ride cost? I think
I don't know
sheriff,
yet.
I think sheriff is free. I can't promise you that. Let's hope so. But hopefully you have good insurance through Midland School.
I do. Thankfully, I
Good,
have
good, good.
insurance. I maxed out everything now. So whatever bills come next, hopefully the insurance company pays for it. But yeah, no, I haven't gotten a bill for the helicopter. They did ask my name and number and everything. So who knows? These bills take a while.
Yeah.
But we'll see about that. But I think based on what I've gotten so far, we're definitely north of, I don't know, a couple $100,000 for sure.
Yeah.
More than that. And if they charge me for the helicopter, then we'll get up there. We won't get to 1 million, I don't think, but it'll be
Let's hope.
half,
Let's
probably
hope.
half. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know for sure. And I haven't gone asking too hard yet either.
No, you might want to stay away from that.
Yes.
Sometimes they'll share information on Ed Hat or some sort of news source about the search and rescue. I know Upper Ojai Search and Rescue, they tend to share all of their rescues. I didn't read anything about your extraction, so
Me neither. I kind of looked around on the Ventura County fire site. They have their kind of monitoring system, but it goes for 24 hours at a time or something like that. So by the time I looked, there's nothing. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
So you think you feel any kind of trepidation or worry about going back onto the trails or any PTSD or anything like that related to the rattlesnakes?
We'll see. Yeah, I haven't really had an opportunity to really fully dive in yet. I think definitely the first time I was out on my crutches, just walking on a trail a little bit, I was like, oh, I'm looking around for
Yeah.
sure. And I'm sure there'll be my first run or whatever that I'm going out on a trail, or the first time I see a snake again. I'm sure it'll be a little, more scary than it was. But it's hard to know, I guess, until I come to it. But for now, it's just left me feeling a lot of gratitude for all the people in my life who've helped support me in the past couple weeks, and just gratitude. Also, people are asking oh, did you kill the snake? That sort of thing. And I just didn't even cross my mind. It's like a snake. Just did its thing. I have no special animosity towards them. But I certainly don't want to get bit again. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Rattlesnake gaiters are another thing.
Yeah.
I wear rattlesnake gaiters sometimes, and
Yeah.
they're a little hot and sweaty, but that might have been a difference maker too.
Well, I think anytime I'm going off trail, April, May, I'll have to have the snake gaiters now off trail, especially April, May, when those males are out looking for mates. And, I think there's definitely a time and place for that. Hot and sweaty for sure, but especially if you're not on a trail, because I think the snakes, if they think they're hidden, they're not going to rattle. If they're out in the open, maybe they're more likely to. I'm not sure about that, but it definitely, I don't have any, but I certainly have looked at it online and have almost made the purchase. So
right. Of course, you don't want to have negative run-ins with rattlesnakes, but we've always kind of said that appreciate that they do rattle, because a lot of other places, even more venomous snakes, they don't rattle. They're not going to give you any warning. I guess you got a bad shake on that one. That didn't rattle and give you that opportunity to jump out of the way or anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I got unlucky, but I got both unlucky and then equally amounts lucky, or maybe even more lucky, in terms of the way it all played out with getting out of there and having my friend with me. And so as unlucky as I got for what happened, I still feel like, dang, I was pretty lucky, So both to get bit at all, but just to be where I'm at and to have the support that I have. And so, yeah, it's definitely both. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you bought friend a 6-pack of beer, and
I should. I still haven't,
he reciprocated and got you a 6-pack as well.
He was the first one to come see me in the hospital.
I'm sure.
That's pretty good. So
I'm sure he was it would be interesting to ask him what was going through his mind on that hike out, but I'm sure he was hauling ass and freaking out at the same time. So yeah, good on him for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention? We had talked about some myths or anything like that you had kind of heard about beforehand that might not have been the case with your particular bite. Anything like that you want to share? We're hoping that, people can learn from your experiences and maybe not have to go through it as a result.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the myths are kind of things we talked about in terms of if you do get bit, what the definitive treatment is getting anti-venom. There's not really much else you can do. I think other things like we just were talking about in our zone, at least, April, May is the time mostly when those snakes start coming out and really looking for their mates. So the males are more active and you're going to see them more often. So you might think how to take precautions appropriately during those times, especially off trail. Other things, the classic stuff that people say, that babies can't control their venom and so they inject more. There's no scientific evidence for that. For example, in fact, some scientists argue actually babies tend to have less venom. So though adults can control it, they just have so much more that in typically more complex versions and have more components. So, if you get by a baby, you don't have to worry. I don't know if you don't have to worry any more than you would if you got bit by an adult, but it's not going to help you much one way or another. Yeah, you don't need to kill the snake that bites you, at least around here. We know what it is. It's kind of just, there's not any magic thing I can say that there's nothing I don't think that would have prevented mine, besides maybe wearing some snake gaiters, maybe, doing that sort of thing. But, just taking sensible precautions, especially when you're traveling alone. Because I think about all the runs I've taken by myself really far in the backcountry, where often I have the satellite communication device, but man, sometimes where I haven't, and just something to, I hope it doesn't keep people from going out there and exploring, but it's just, being aware, knowing that it can happen. And yeah.
Nice, Dan. Well, thank you so much. And look forward to getting to know you a little bit better over the coming years. And hopefully we'll see you out on the trail here pretty soon.
That sounds great. Yeah, I really appreciate taking the time and talking. And we'll do some trail work here soon.
Right on, Dan. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this was helpful for you to learn a little bit more about rattlesnakes and what to do should you be around for a rattlesnake bite. We wanted to thank Dan again for sharing his story and send out our appreciation for all the agencies and volunteers who help with search and rescue operations across the Los Padres backcountry. Thank you all so much. If you'd like some more information about our rattlesnakes, you can check out some other videos we produce with local snake expert Dr. Emily Taylor. You can find those videos on the LPFA YouTube channel or check out Dr. Taylor at Central Coast Snake Services. And lastly, we'd love to buy Dan a pair of rattlesnake gaiters. The brand we've been using for the past 10 years or so is called Turtle Skin. They're really nice. If you'd like to contribute towards Dan's new pair of rattlesnake gaiters, click the link above or go visit this website here. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy your time in Los Padres and stay safe.